Hello and welcome everybody to the Import-Export Hub Channel Weekly Newsreel. Bogdan here, your host for the next couple of minutes. Thank you all for taking some of your time in order to watch this video. And guys, without further ado, let's start with the traditional quiz question of the week, if you want. So prepare yourselves, and the question is the following. Who was the largest importer of chewing gum in the world, of course, in terms of value in 2020? And the options here are the United States, the United Arab Emirates, or Germany. And guys, the correct answer is the United States with $95 million worth of imports, 27,000 tons in terms of weight, which translates roughly into some 1,353 feet containers from my calculations, which is absolutely huge. And guys, just for your information, in terms of weight, the biggest importer of chewing gum for 2020 was Uganda with some 29,000 tons. But all this weight has only a sixth of the value if we compare it with the figures from the United States. But anyways, with this being said, I'll now move on to the Freightos index, which for week 3 sat at $9,680, so up 2% from the previous week, with North America, East Coast to North Europe sub-index having the biggest positive change, so 14%. While in terms of the main Trans-Pacific head haul sub-indexes, we have China to North America West Coast at $15,145 and China to North America East Coast at $16,986. On the other hand, for the crossways, we have China to North Europe SunB index at $14,578. And the last one, connecting China to the Mediterranean, set at week 3 at $14,158, which is up 4% from the previous week. So all these changes, guys, are somehow predictable and not very steep, as I've said it previously. And now, I don't know, we just have to pass the Chinese New Year, if you want, and see if the pressures will somehow dampen, and why not, maybe we will see how the index will go even lower. Now, moving to the actual news, week 3 had plenty of news, and I will try to cover them as fast as possible in order to keep this video short. So here we go with the first news coming from Yonhap News Agency. I hope I've pronounced it correctly. And it's about the $81 million cumulative fine that some 23 shipping companies operating in South Korea received from the Fair Trade Commission, which is basically South Korea's antitrust regulator. The charges were aimed at 12 South Korean and 11 foreign shipping companies that between December 2003 and December 2018, so 15 years, guys, colluded to set some minimum levels of freights on the Southeast Asian sea routes. And among the companies that were fined, we have Vanhai, Yangming, Evergreen, Costco, OOCL, also CMA CGM's Intra-Asia unit is here, Pacific International Lines, HMM or Korea Marine Transport Company. This last one receiving the largest fine of about 30 billion won, which is more or less $25 million. Of course, that the Shippers Association from South Korea is fighting back, and from their point of view, there is no wrongdoing here, but the fact remains that, as I was expecting, regulatory bodies all over the world, at least the responsible ones, if you want, because the EU regulatory body, for example, is in some sort of hibernation or something. But anyways, the idea is that some of these authorities began to take actions, and frankly, I won't be surprised to see others do the same in the near future. Anyways, these fines had little impact on their operations and, I don't know, financial stability, but I thought it was worth mentioning the news because as much as I like the industry, there is still a lot to do in terms of transparency. Now, moving on to my second news, I have one about Japan's imports and exports, which in December 2021 did very well. In terms of exports, these jumped some 17% from a year earlier, not necessarily the best benchmark, but nonetheless important, while the imports were up 41%, so some 8.5 trillion yen in absolute terms, up for the 11th consecutive month. As for the main trading partners, in terms of exports, we have those towards China, which is Japan's largest trading partner. Exports who were up almost 11%, and also the exports towards the United States grew significantly, and we have here a 22% increase year on year. And looking ahead, the Japanese authorities are keeping a close eye on the spread of Omicron variant, of course, in Southeast Asia amid the concerns over a repeat of the summer of last year, so 2021, when auto parts factories were closed as preventive measures. And guys, I don't think there is more to cover from this article, and I will move on to the next one concerning South Africa's wine industry, which was hit by a series of alcohol bans and, of course, supply chain disruptions in 2021. However, it still performed very well as the total export volumes managed to grow 22%, with the United Kingdom being the biggest export market. And in terms of exported volumes, these two had an increase of about 12%, according to this article, partially driven by the global shortages, which of course boosted the prices. And I don't know, factor in China's trade war with Australia, where the Australian wines and exporters are cut in the middle. Well, we have here the perfect opportunity for the South African wine exporters to increase their market share in China, either through bulk shipments or through bottled wine ones. Although for this kind of exports, I'm imagining that the values are still very low. So it seems that 2021 was a good year for the South African wine exporters. And if you want to read more, you have the link in the description below, as usual. And I'll move on with the news, and I have one coming from containernews.com, and it's about the complaint of MCS Industries towards MSC, if you remember. While the complaint towards Costco was resolved amicably last year, the one with MSC was impending, and it seems that MCS Industries' momentum is somehow dissipating, as, and I quote here, it didn't manage to provide any information that shows MSC to have breached its service contract, end of quote. If I remember correctly, at that time, MSC was fighting back with some defamation lawsuit or something similar. This article doesn't cover that story, so I am guessing that both parties' anger somehow is gone, and I think that this whole story will fade also with some kind of closed-door amicable negotiations. Anyways, again, this was just a passing through information that I wanted to mention to you, and now I will move to another interesting news coming from retaildetail.eu, and it's about Hugo Boss' reaction to the current supply chain disruptions, as it is embarking on a new strategy aimed at expanding its production capacity closer to its home base in Europe, and of course by shortening their supply chains in order to reduce their exposure to the Southeast Asian producers. And in this sense, what Hugo Boss did is to increase the capacity from their Izmir factory in Turkey, who dates back in 1999, according to this article. By the way, it seems that it is the largest one in terms of capacity. And the idea is that this production facility will be expanded in order to accommodate another 1,000 employees. So with all the inflation going on there, Turkey is still an attractive place to nearshore your manufacturing activities. Of course, if you're a multinational company with operations in Europe. If I were to think about investing in Turkey right now in a, I don't know, a greenfield project, for sure I would be hesitant. But given the history of Hugo Boss with Turkey, and let's not forget about other big companies who invested heavily in Turkey, increasing the capacity even in this context is not that risky, if you ask me, especially as those outputs are 99% of the case related to exports towards other countries, especially towards countries based in the European Union. Anyways, it remains to be seen how Turkey's inflation will develop. For sure, it already impacts a lot of the strategy of the companies from Europe who wanted to nearshore some of their activities there. So it's worth following up on some stories concerning nearshoring in Turkey. And guys, speaking of inflation, I have an article coming from Economic Times via maritimegateway.com, which covers the issue of inflation in relation with soaring freight rates. And here I won't enter the debate between the shipping experts and economists. Both are stubborn and biased, if you ask me, but rather give you an insight of mine about how the current freight rates structurally change or are about to change the operations of small importers and exporters, of course, those using ocean transport. And not only, if you ask me. And basically, both the importers and exporters will have to remove some low-cost, no-added value products from their portfolios, start to focus on fewer products with better margin and not easily substitutable. And I know it sounds worse than it is, but let's face it, if you've survived 2021 as a small importer or exporter, it's because you got lucky with some big inventories before the freight surge, or I don't know, you've eroded some of your margin. And my guess is that if you want to survive 2022, you will have to do more than that. And I think that every small importer and exporter should now focus on a couple of pillars, like, I don't know, focusing, as I've said earlier, on value-added products that are not easily substitutable. And of course, to benefit the economies of scale and or scope. And with this in mind, you should strategize your next business operations if you want, even after the current freight rates are gone. And simply forget about focusing on hundreds of SKUs and tens of suppliers. If you want to survive, again, you have to switch off your pre-pandemic business mindset and, I don't know, adapt to the new reality of importing and exporting, of course, as a small player. Anyways, this is my thought of doing business. I might be way out with this thought. So I'll move on to the next news and briefly cover this last one, coming, as we can all see from Splash 24/7, as the logistic giant Kuehne+Nagel had recently developed a new key performance indicator which underscores today's super stress container shipping situation, and is called the Global Disruption Indicator, which tallies the cumulative TEU waiting time in days based on container vessel capacity in disrupted ports. You have in this article some interesting facts, so I highly recommend you to read the entire article, as my time is up, guys. And with this being said, thank you all for watching. I wish you a very, very enjoyable day. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe buttons, and of course, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.